What's a tip that's NSFW but can save your life? Wounds in that department can take years and surgery to recover. Louis XIV was the king of France and he suffered from an anal fistula. He was in such pain that he couldn't sit down, or lay down, so every day at court he was laying on his stomach, with his ass up in the air, so he wasn't in pain. He went to his barber and told him he wanted a surgical cure. The barber said, "Fuck that, I'm not doing impossible surgery on the king," but Louis was insistent, so his barber eventually agreed if he was able to spend a few years experimenting on prisoners first. Anyway, after practicing for years, it turns out the surgery on Louis XIV was very successful, a complete cure. So now Louis is going around telling everyone how modern he was for having his butthole cured, but all this time he still walks around with huge bloody bandages wrapped around his butt. So, the rest of the nobility start to wrap their own butts up in fake bloody bandages, since getting anal fistula surgery is now en vogue. So for a while, it was a fashion trend to wrap your butt up in bloody bandages. Funny story. My anatomy and physiology teacher told a story like that about her professor. The professor said, "I have a vial of urine. The easy way to test for diabetes is to simply dip your finger in and taste it." He dipped a finger, tasted, and said, "Yes, this urine indicates diabetes." Then he passed around the vial. Everyone tasted it and said it tasted like nothing or it tasted sweet. Completely random. The professor said, "I dipped my middle finger in the piss, and I licked my index. You weren't paying attention and just tasted piss, and that was the lesson." Diatribe in reductio ad absurdum follows. His point was to not look at things as if they are obvious. Look at the details. It wasn't piss, by the way. It was a little yellow food coloring in warm water which is tasteless if not bitter, yet some of the students said it was sweet. Yes, my teacher fell for it and was proud to tell the story. Thus, I remember the lesson to this day. Look, see, different thing, watch, fool, test, review, think, adjust, adapt, test again, verify, confirm, commit, repeat as necessary. I know that's kind of gibberish, but that's what came out while writing. Let's say you get food poisoning like I did last winter. You're semi-delirious and not sure if you're about to puke or have diarrhea. Always err on the side of sitting on the toilet and keep a bag or bucket nearby just in case you're wrong. Throwing out a bag/washing out a bucket is infinitely better than the alternative of being wrong about one or the other. In the throes of my full body purge, I became convinced I had to text my roommate this info because he was also laid up with the same case. He didn't respond, but both of our lives, or at least our bathrooms, were saved. Edit. Several folks have pointed out that eventually you may just want to get in your tub and let things happen. This is the preferred method if you're too dizzy to sit up for long periods of time. Bathtubs and showers are far easier to clean than anything else in your bathroom, plus the shower can keep you clean and hydrated in the meantime. Edit 2. The above only applies if everything coming out of you is completely liquid. Otherwise you're gonna have to unclog your shower drain by hand. Edit 3. And for the love of God, if you feel like you might die, get a ride to the hospital or call an ambulance. I started getting better after the first day of this thing, but if you have other medical conditions or it doesn't get any better after a day or two, just get medical help. Even if it's expensive, your life is more important. For chest compressions, you want to have as little clothing as possible between you and the person you're helping, but a t-shirt in the way won't hurt. However, always mentally prepare yourself for undressing an unconscious accident/heart attack victim. Yes, it might be a woman/person with boobs. It might be an elderly woman/person with boobs. If an AED/pad, defibrillator, is available, use it, it can save a life. But you can only use it on bare skin, and it means everything must go, coats, shirts, and bras. It's often in public and there might even be people filming with their phones. In general, women are less likely to receive proper CPR, as bystanders fear sexual harassment accusations. It's terrifying, paralyzing, and fucking tragic. So mentally prepare yourself to bear, see, and touch another person's chest. My dad gave me the old statement, don't fuck with crazy. If you think you're being followed, and you really don't have another option to protect yourself, it's at least something that does work decently. Once he was leaving the kinda shady bar in our town and was parked on the far end of the lot, no one else parked anywhere near. He was walking to his car and two dudes followed him out and stayed about 10 feet back but were following. When my dad reached his car and noticed they were still there, he turned around, they stopped, there's obviously nowhere else they were going but to follow him. He caught one set of their eyes, and said all right. You can do whatever you want to me. But I'm gonna take one eyeball. The dudes' faces both drop, they glanced at each other, and were like, what? One eyeball. Won't tell you whose, won't say which one, won't tell you when, and he widened his eyes big, if you touch me I'm taking one eyeball and eating it. Both of them backed up being like dude you're fucking nuts, what the hell, before heading back to the bar with some decent hustle, and he went home _/. Know your dealer and if you can get your drugs tested for purity. MDMA cut with Adderall is fine, MDMA cut with meth a different story altogether. Also, get a trip sitter. For the love of God, get a trip sitter. Also, acid lasts for fucking ever. You think you know what that will be like? You're wrong. You can be tripping for a day. Acid is a commitment. Don't freak out if you are having a bad trip. A bad trip will not last the entire trip most likely. If it is really bad, take some Benadryl and put on something calming. You can't make yourself stop tripping. But you can skip most of it. Nitrous will fuck with your B12 levels. Take a supplement before and after for a while. If you notice tingling in your extremities, don't ignore it. It is probably a B12 deficiency. Your doctor can give you an injection which will work surprisingly quickly. Don't do MDMA with anyone you don't trust. Don't do it with anyone you don't want to make out with. Actually, that goes for all drugs. Don't do drugs with people you don't trust completely. Actually, try to find out the interactions with your psych meds and drugs. Serotonin syndrome is no joke. Interestingly, look through all the top-level comments, some of you are seriously twisted, but did not notice this said by anyone: do not stick your dick in anything abruptly. I know, you want that wonderful all the way deep feeling, but at least get the tip in place first. First, dudes can absolutely fracture their penis violently, requiring surgery if they miss the bullseye, and even if you don't fracture your penis, your partner won't enjoy the near fracture experience. Remember, if anything can become rigid, it can break. Related medical emergencies, but from the opposite side of the loneliness spectrum, vacuum cleaner wounds to the penis are also nothing to look forward to. Interestingly, most of the case literature seems to date back to the mid-1980s, no, I have no idea why. In a cheering note, a 2017 Italian patient being treated for lacerations to the glands due to a vacuum cleaner freely admitted he'd done so to simulate fellatio. Everyone from the 1980s seems to describe household accidents due to hoovering in the nude, which, nope. Just get yourself that fleshlight or Tenga egg. Seriously. I live for these threads. Anyway, I know a photographer who was offered to shoot a wedding on the Gold Coast, Australia. If you're from Australia, then you know the Gold Coast, while beautiful, has a lot of Jersey Shore types living there. It's kind of like Miami but no celebrities and very, very trashy. My friend is getting shots of everybody getting dressed up at the same time because the groom, groomsmen, bride, and bridesmaids are all getting ready in the same room. The groom decided to have his bucks party, bachelor, stag do, the night before, so they're all hungover as shit and snorting line after line of coke, something that is making my photographer friend's job hard because she can't get any nice shots of the groom or groomsmen without these illicit drugs in view. The energy in the room is getting uncomfortable, so the bride asks if they could take it easy on the coke and get a couple of nice photos. The groom yells "Shut up, cunt," and keeps snorting. The girl who got my friend the gig said they divorced like 4 months later. Another friend of mine was pressured into marrying his girlfriend of like 8 years because she dropped an ultimatum, "Propose to me within a year or we're done." He does, so they get married, but of every wedding photo she posted on Facebook, neither one of them looked happy. They divorced barely a year into their marriage. I just played at a wedding where it was the opposite. Bride and groom had no idea you usually had music at a wedding. I suggested canon because the groom's family wanted super slow worship music and the bride was too afraid to speak up. Then last minute her aunt, the bassist's mom, says to play Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen, and even though it was instrumental, some of the groom's family straight up leaves. Also, once they found out there was going to be music, the groom's family wanted to be the ones playing and singing, but those kids were super raw/amateurs and expectedly backed out once they saw the crowd. Leading to the groom's family trying to pretend they didn't know there would be a band and trying to get my girlfriend, vocalist, and my bassist off the stage. The cherry on top is the pastor marrying them went off on a tangent and said because she was a single mother this relationship was doomed and she damned any future children they'd have, and cursed their relationship because she had sex before marriage. The ceremony was delayed because the bride and groom were on the phone with the groom's mother, who refused to come to the wedding, trying to be talked into still going through with it. Apparently they had a huge and physical fight the night before. Their roommate at the time didn't come either. He told me what he saw in the house the night before was enough for him to know this wedding was doomed and they should not be dating, let alone getting married. Edit: in an attempt to answer some of these questions, first, this was about 20 years ago and we are all in our 40s now and have moved on with life since. So, I don't know why the mother wasn't there. I just remember thinking it was weird when I noticed she wasn't, and then later heard they were on the phone with her. The roommate was visibly angry when I went to pick him up for the wedding. Outright refused to come, and I think ended up moving out and basically disappearing after. He was a big dude who worked as a bouncer at clubs, and my impression was he had to go into work mode the night before in his living room and wasn't happy about it. I never heard details and I wouldn't have felt right asking for them. I am still friends, in the sense that I see them every few years, with both the bride and groom. See my comment below for how they turned out. Happy ending considering. I should also add, the years in which they dated and got married, all of us were very heavy binge drinkers. We were in our 20s and work service industry jobs. It seemed normal almost for this much drama to be around. Looking back, I don't have the same opinions. No one involved ended up in rehab or prison and all live relatively normal lives now. That sucks for everyone. At least they're free to be happy now. A girl I used to know was attached to me. I'm no catch, so I refrain from using obsessive or stalker type behavior. However, that's kinda what we're dealing with. I rebuffed her advances, nicely as first, then fairly harshly later. Eventually I cut contact with her for our own good. I was tired of explaining that while I might find her as a person enjoyable, that doesn't mean I want to fuck her or have a relationship with her. From what her friends and family said, I didn't think she'd be able to move on if I was in her life. At least not as quickly as she should have. Years later I re-establish contact with a mutual friend, and I eventually asked about her. Turns out she is a lesbian, and was happily living with a woman. Looking back, it makes sense. She only hung out with ladies or super duper effeminate men. Which by those standards I'm fucking Rambo and Arnold rolled into one. She wasn't all about me, so much as she was all about denying that part of herself for whatever reason. Like I said, I'm no catch myself. Looking back now it all seems so sad. It's a damned shame she felt like she couldn't be who she really is inside. I'm glad now that she's living her truth. The only good part about a breakup is that both people are now free to find someone that'll love them for them. When she went alone on her honeymoon, because she booked a trip to the Caribbean despite her newlywed husband having a severe sun allergy. Edit, because this kinda blew up and I saw some mean comments about her. She was a good friend and they had been together for some years. They married young and it didn't occur to them that it would be strange if she went on the honeymoon and he stayed behind. He was a good guy and just wanted to see her happy, and she really wanted to go on this vacation, because she had never left the country. They separate half a year after the wedding and my friend, the bride, told me that the marriage had been a way to prolong the relationship despite both of them knowing that it was already over some time before they got married. Kinda like a couple gets a baby to save a marriage. It really was just sad because they were a nice couple, but they stayed friends after separating. And I can guarantee that she didn't cheated on him while away. They were both really loyal. About his sun allergy, he had red hair, a really fair skin and burned up within minutes. And I mean really bad sunburn, the kind you have to go to the hospital for. He always had to wear sunglasses, long-armed shirts, and a hat, even on cloudy days, so the vacation was not for him. I was invited to a high school friend's wedding. The night before the wedding she asked me to join her future husband's bachelor party. He had no friends and it was only he, his brother, his father, and I. They were not thrilled with my presence. They wanted to go to a strip club, but thought I would rat them out. We to a bar, but I could tell I was the turd in the punch bowl, so I went back to the hotel and they went to a strip club. My friend called me after I got back to the hotel. She asked me why I didn't go to the strip club and I told her that it wasn't my thing. She asked if we could hang out and catch up. I said sure and she came to my room only wearing a robe. It was obvious there was nothing on under it. We watched a movie and she fell asleep. At some point in the night she left. The next morning at the wedding I was sitting next to a mutual friend. This friend was encouraging me to object and looked disappointed when I didn't do it. They lasted 5 years, but lived together less than 2. Friend's wedding back in 2016, somewhat nice affair for us given we were in our early 20s and all. I was a bridesmaid and really hadn't met the groom much prior. He was nice but quiet. Day before wedding the bride, a longtime friend, asked me to help babysit one of the groomsmen because he was a nightmare. Asked me, other bridesmaid, DJ, the works to help cut him off from alcohol before the ceremony, not to allow him to make a speech, keep him from hitting on girls, the works. He was an alcoholic douche with 6 kids and 2 DUIs but was the absolute best friend of the groom. Day of the wedding, best douche breaks into the bar, gets hammered, has to be dragged down the aisle, gets the florist drunk while they pretty much have sex on the dance floor, and makes what I can only assume to be a speech during the father/daughter dance. The bride was pissed and stressed as well, trying to get things to not be a total shit show. Groom blocked us from keeping him in check, wanted us to just let it go while he did everything the bride asked he not do. It was like a weird purposeful or intentional self-sabotage thing. Douche also broke into the groom's private stash of homemade mead he'd made special just for the wedding, stripped his clothes, and ran through the parking lot hiding in bushes at 11 p.m. Same night the couple texted me asking if I'd want to be their third in their open relationship, which I find out later was mostly the groom's idea. I also found out later they got married pretty quickly because she suddenly needed medical benefits all the while he had been asking for an open relationship for the complete duration of them being together, but she'd only acquiesce if he would marry her as well. Divorce finalized a year and a half later. Edit to add, no, I did not join them, don't shit where you eat. And no, stop asking if I'm X or Y person. Some of y'all have apparently lived through very similar situations apparently, but stop asking if you know me. I may have posted, but I have no intention of doxing myself or the people in this story. This would be the wedding of my own parents. They had been divorced for many years, but told us, the kids and their spouses, they were planning to get remarried, and would we like to go with them to Las Vegas to witness this event. We were all still in our 20s, so we thought hell yeah. Flash forward to 2 days into the weekend and there has been no word of a wedding. The kids all had a conversation, what should we do? Should we ask about it? That should have been our first clue that it wasn't a good idea for them to get married. But lack of perspective made us oblivious to the obvious. So we pressured them. Hey. You told us you were going to get remarried, when are you going to do it? Anyway, then we suddenly found ourselves in a courtroom, speaking to the judge. He was wise, and asked to speak privately to my parents, and I am sure asked them, why are you doing this, are you sure? Well, I guess they gave him the correct answers, because he did it. Long story short, they ended up divorcing again. Not long afterwards.